Turning to our politics lead now, Dr. Anthony Fauci says he has not personally briefed the president in 2 months or even seen him since the beginning of June, despite the U.S. hitting a record number of cases. And during this deadly pandemic, the president is calling into his favorite channel to rail against his perceived political enemies. And as CNN's Jeremy Diamond reports, boasting about acing a cognitive test.
I proved I was all there because I aced it.
As the pandemic rages on, President Trump is focused on dismissing questions about his mental acuity, claiming he recently aced a cognitive test.
Hey, buddy.
As he called into question Joe Biden's mental fitness.
Took it at Walter Reed Medical Center in front of doctors, and they were very surprised. They said that's an unbelievable thing.
The White House would not say when he took the test or provide any details. But CNN previously reported Trump took the Montreal Cognitive Assessment in 2018, scoring highly on a test that includes simple memory and mental tasks, which only indicates he is not suffering any mild cognitive dysfunction. Today, Trump's spending the day in the country's biggest coronavirus hotspot, but his trip to Florida has nothing to do with the pandemic. Instead, Trump appears focused on shoring up his re-election prospects in this critical battleground state, posing with seized drugs, accusing his Democratic rival of supporting socialism, and attending a high-dollar fundraiser. But his chances at a second term may be tied to the crisis he is all but ignoring. A new poll revealing that just 1/3 of Americans approve of Trump's handling of the pandemic, down from 41% just 3 weeks ago. Even Republicans are starting to lose faith. Support for Trump's handling of coronavirus dipping from 90 to 78% in his own party.
Dr. Fauci's a nice man, but he's made a lot of mistakes.
Very difficult.
Meanwhile, the president is locked in an increasingly public feud with the country's most trusted doctor, whose assessment of the surge in coronavirus cases is growing gloomier, while the president tries to spin a rosier version of reality.
We have tested almost 40 million people. By so doing, we show cases, 99% of which are totally harmless.
Dr. Fauci, who says he hasn't seen Trump in more than 5 weeks, making clear that's not true, telling the Financial Times, "What I think happened is that someone told him that the general mortality is about 1%, and he interpreted, therefore, that 99% is not a problem, when that's obviously not the case."
And Pam, as you know, President Trump has stubbornly refused to wear a mask in public, even mocking his rival Joe Biden for doing so. We're expecting the president, though, tomorrow to take a step in the other direction. He is expected to wear a mask when he visits Walter Reed National Military Medical Center tomorrow, and I'm told that he will be photographed wearing one. That comes after a private and quite quiet lobbying campaign by some White House aides and campaign officials to urge the president to wear a mask to show his supporters that it's okay to do that. We know that a number of Republican officials have tried recently to depoliticize mask wearing, and now the question is whether the president, in wearing this mask tomorrow, whether that's going to do anything to change it after all these weeks during which he's downplayed this effective public health initiative.
Back with me now to discuss all of this, CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta and CNN political director David Chalian. All right, Sanjay, let's talk about this test. The one we know about that's been publicly disclosed is this cognitive test for the president that was in 2018. That was the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. What do we know about that test, and what does it mean exactly to ace it?
Right. Well, that's not a term that I think most the medical community would use to describe doing well on the test. It's not like the SAT or something, or a test that you take in school. It's more of a screening test. We can show you some of the types of questions that are asked here. It's trying to find whether someone is suffering from some cognitive dysfunction that they themselves may not recognize. So, at the top of the test, you get a sort of sense. The 1 goes to the A, the 2 is going to go to the B, and 3 is going to go to the C. Can you draw a cube? Can you draw the face of a clock, a certain time? Can you identify animals? I mean, it's a pretty basic test, and it's really more of a screening test. So, you know, when we're talking about trying to evaluate someone's cognitive function, it's usually pretty involved, right? There may be imaging, there may be blood work, there may be more detailed neurological assessment. This is sort of a screening test. So it sounds like you got a perfect score on it. But again, you can see the sorts of questions on there. If somebody had a significant problem, it would probably screen that, you know, it would be a screening test and sort of call for more sophisticated testing. I don't even know which test he's talking about because he says it was a recent test. Is this the 2018 test?
Right. Yeah.
Is this something that happened in 2019? He went to Walter Reed in November of 2019. That was sort of an unplanned visit. Was he getting a cognitive workup at that point? If so, why? Why there versus the White House? There's all sorts of questions more than answers, you know, after this comment.
Absolutely, and the White House isn't providing any clarification on whether or not how recent this test was. And just to be clear, so on the test we're talking about in 2018, if you get a perfect score, that wouldn't necessarily, in your view, be an unbelievable thing or something that would rarely happen, as the president tried to portray it. Just to be clear.
Yeah, and you could see the nature of the questions there. Can you identify a camel? Can you identify a lion? Can you say that A goes to 1? I mean, it's not a hard test. If somebody wasn't doing well on that or was getting things wrong, that would be a cause for concern. Most people should get those types of questions.
Okay, so let's talk about this polling, David. The polling out today showing 2/3 of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of coronavirus. How concerning is that to the White House, to the president?
In a word, very. And take a look, not just this is the highest disapproval, that 67% that we've seen on his handling of this major issue, top of mind for voters, but look at the trend, Pam. I mean, it goes from 58% disapproval in June, and it jumps up 9 points to 67%. That's one big concern. It's also the partisan breakdown. The president is losing his own Republicans on this. In June, he had 90% of approval among Republicans for his handling of the virus. It's down 12 points to 78%, and you see he's bleeding even more with independents from 40% now all the way down to 26%. These are some of the most alarming poll numbers that the president has seen, and he has not been seeing great poll numbers in these last several weeks.
And what's interesting is that, like, the president's strategy seems to be right now, look, there's nothing to see here. Things are getting better with coronavirus. But if you look at these poll numbers, that messaging doesn't appear to be working in his favor, particularly, as you pointed out, among Republicans. And where are Americans as a whole on the pace of reopenings in the U.S.?
Again, this is one poll, this ABC News Ipsos poll out today. We'll look to see as other polls come out. But right now, 59% of Americans say that reopening the economy is happening too quickly. Only 15% say it's too slowly. About a quarter say it's the right pace. But you're talking about nearly 6 in 10 Americans. That's a pretty healthy majority in a divided universe that we live in that says the reopening is happening too quickly.
All right. Thank you so much, David Chalian, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. I appreciate it.